Hi there. We're going to talk about Here's to You, the March 2021 paper pumpkin. Today we're going to make two of the samples just like these. And then we're going to bump it up a notch, and I'm going to show you how I made some alternatives. Before we begin, just a reminder, if you're ever looking to coordinate your colors, it's on the back of your instruction sheet. And this month, because it is March and it's always like the anniversary birthday of Paper Pumpkin, they give you something extra. So this time we have 4 stencils and a sponge. Now, you don't need the sponge this size. So what I did is I cut it into fourths. So I just cut it with my scissors. 1, 2. And then you have 4 pieces like this. It makes it great when you are dabbing it onto your stamp, onto your ink, and then dabbing it right onto the stencil. Up and down. Never swirl with these stamps, with these stencils. They are too delicate, so you want to go up and down like this when you're using your stencils. Okay, let's get started. For the first 2 cards, pretty basic, instinctive to put together. So the first card comes with its own base. The picture is already printed on it. You're just going to use the 2 pieces of card rectangles. You're going to use one of the bumped or punched out trees, a piece of the old olive rectangle, and one of the larger label pieces. You're going to stamp Here's to You on the large label piece. You're going to stamp these little birds on the yellow cloud piece. That's the only stamping you need to do. You're going to use some of your twine behind here, and all I did is I used my 3 fingers and I just twirled it around like 3 times, pulled it off, and gathered it in the middle and stuck it on to behind my sentiment with some dimensionals. So you glue your trees with dimensionals, you glue the piece of old olive with dimensionals, the cloud pieces are with dimensionals, and then this piece is with dimensionals. That's all there is to it for that card. If you're using the card kit exactly the way it says, then your next thing is to take your coordinating envelope insert and put it inside the envelope, fold it up, and you're ready to go. However, there's a lot of lost pretty in here. So what I did is I took all of mine and I cut them right here at 4 inches. So you have a 4-inch piece this way, and you have a 5.5 inch piece this way, which makes it really good, a good nice piece to use on a number of other projects. So it's the only piece I have left like this. I cut all of them right across here so that I have 4 inches and then 5.25 or 5.5, whatever this is that way. And I've used it on my alternative pieces, my alternative cards. When I cut my envelope flaps, then what I got was one flap that I glued onto each of the envelopes. So I use my envelope flap piece for the back of the envelope, so it makes it kind of decorative. And then I decorate the front of the card, which for this one I used the stamp set that came with the kit, and I stamped it off full force and then stamped it off without re-inking. So I like that look. I don't care what it looks like inside. It's going to be thrown away. It's just nice to see something pretty to begin with. second card is, again, very easy to put together. And what I did for this one is I started with the Pretty Peacock base and took one of the printed card pieces, bumped it up on dimensionals. I did stamp the birds twice. I think the sample on the front of your kit only has one set of birds, so it's your choice. Then you take and stamp Happy Birthday on 3 of your smaller labels. I didn't have quite enough ink on this one, and I thought, oh no, I'm going to redo it. But you know what? Once I had them all done, I kind of liked from the light to the darker image, so I just kept it that way. It's just a way to cover up a mistake, to be honest with you, but I like it. Then you take the twine and just wrap it around 3 times. Knot it in the back so that the knot doesn't show. And I just used a little bit of Scotch tape to hold it in place in the back. I bumped the 3 pieces, the 3 labels with dimensionals, and there you have card number 2. I decorated this envelope by taking that one piece from the back, gluing it, and then I stamped the front with the floral image. My alternatives, I did not decorate on the inside or the outside of the envelopes so that you could be as creative as you wanted to. So for this first card, we use another one of the Pretty Peacock bases, but you'll notice I did not use the middle fold. What I did is I scored it at 2 1/8 on either side and folded it in to make it a gatefold card. I simply added a piece of the Whisper White inside, or Basic White inside, so that you don't see that fold, and nobody will care from the back anyway. Anyway, what I did is I took the picture image, I glued it onto the Basic White, and then I cut it right down the middle and glued it onto the card base to make that gatefold. I took the Pretty Peacock and the white piece, I stamped Happy Birthday, and I glued it only on the right hand side. I took a little tiny bit of ribbon and just knotted it. When you don't have enough ribbon, just using a knot instead of a bow is an easy way to go, and it saves on some of your embellishments. And there you have it. For our next cards, I actually did 2 cards together. So I'm going to show them to you together. We take the envelopes off here. Okay, so they look like this. And so this is a fancy Z-fold card. It's a Z-fold card, but we've just cut it. You'll see I took and measured on the left-hand side 2 inches from the bottom, and then I zipped it. I just lined it up with the fold, and I cut that down, cut that off with my paper cutter. So it's a regular Z-fold card. I marked it on the left-hand side at 2 inches just to tick with my pencil. I lined that up into the cutter along with the fold, and I sliced it right down. So then you have that Z fold, okay? It's not complicated, it just looks kind of fancy. I glued the white, Basic White inside and tore a little piece of Pretty Peacock for the bottom. I gave you a couple of dragonflies, and I did bump those up with dimensionals. I'm kind of running low on my bling supply, so I just used some extra sequins that I have. If you have sequins or little ribbons or any, what else could you use? Oh, those little buttons, you could use anything. And to make these little pieces right here, you're going to use one of those 5x4 pieces that I told you about from the inside of the envelope. And you're going to measure 1 3/4 inch from the bottom, and you're going to mark it, line it up, that tick mark, with the upper right hand corner of your pattern paper in the groove of your paper trimmer, and you're going to cut it out. You're going to save the top triangular piece that's left to make this card. So you use a 5x4 piece of a 5 1/4 by 4 piece of pattern paper. You're going to measure 1 3/4 inches up from the bottom of the patterned paper on the 5 1/4 inch side, on the left side, and make a little tick mark. Then you're going to place your paper in your paper trimmer, line up the tick mark and the top right corner of the pattern paper in the groove of your paper trimmer, and make the cut. So then you'll have this piece and that piece ready to go. You're going to get the two pieces, this piece measures 1 7/8 inch across, and then the other piece will fit right there. So that's all you have to do. Then for this piece right here, I use a piece of 5 1/4 by 1 7/8 inch of that other pattern paper, and measure 1 3/4 inches down from the top right side. So this time we're doing it from the top. Measure 1 3/4 inches down from the top right side of the pattern paper and make a little tick mark. Place the pattern paper in your paper trimmer, line up the tick mark on the left top corner of the pattern paper in the groove of your paper trimmer, and cut the paper diagonally. Save the small piece for card number, for a card that we're going to do later on. So that's all you have to do, okay? It looks a lot more difficult than it is. And then to make the second card, you've got this piece left over, and you're going to simply glue it flat onto the very corner of your card base. You're going to rip one side of your pretty peacock piece and glue it flat on there. You're going to do a little stenciling on that bumblebee piece that I gave you. And so you have the star stencil, but how did I get these trees? Well, I used the negative piece from when you punched out the trees, and I did the same technique, just dabbing the color right on top of the stencil, and that's how I got the trees. The little postage stamp piece I gave you, I stamped it using the stamp set, wrapped the twine around twice, tied a knot, added one of the little dragonflies, and I did, I think, use, oh, I didn't. I just glued it by its wings onto the white piece, and then I bumped that white piece up with dimensionals. Added a little bit of bling, and there you have your companion card. So these two cards go together. Fun, huh? All right. The next card is, we use Seafoam, Sea Spray. Sea Spray, the blue, the pretty one that's retiring. I used the Sea Spray, and they are actually tent fold cards. So you cut these at 4 1/4 and then score them at 5 1/2. And actually, when you look at them, you'll see that both of them are tent folds. I just folded this one up 2 inches. So I took the front and just scored it at 2 inches and flipped it up. So let's talk about this card first. So this card, you have your tent fold, and then you have 2 pieces of basic white. One goes on the inside, the other one you're going to stencil on it, and you're using, I used a bumblebee, but if you only have your Calypso coral, I think that would be lovely on it too. And again, stipple, kind of sponge up and down, don't rub. And I took the tree punch out piece, glued it on, then one of those 5 1/4 by 4 inch pieces from the inside of the envelope, I just tore it. I love this kind of whitish, kind of funky look that you get with the torn look. I glued that over the top, so everything is glued flat, and then just bumped up the sentiment with dimensionals, and you have a piece of basic white to do your own stamping. And again, if you don't like the wording that is in this month's Paper Pumpkin stamp set, you can use one of your old ones or another set, doesn't matter. I did add some sequins because I thought it added a little bit of sparkle on there. On the inside, glued the Whisper White piece, took another piece of that 5 1/4 by 4, and on the 4 inch side, I just tore it again, a little piece, glued it on the bottom, makes for a nice complementary inside. To make the second Sea Spray card, again, I did start out with the tent fold, and I took it, marked it at 2 inches and flipped it up. Then I used a piece of the inside of the envelope. I think I have that upside down, yeah. The inside of the envelope, I think it's 1 7/8 by 4 inches, and this one I did a little bit, I don't know if you can see, but it's just a little bit wider, maybe 2 inches, and put it inside the flap, and then I glued the flap down with dimensionals, so you can't even see that it doesn't go all the way through. And then I used another piece of the 4 inches by 1 7/8 to glue inside here. I gave you a piece of the Whisper White to glue inside and to stamp. I used another piece of the inside of the envelope. I think it's about the same width, like 1 7/8 by 4, and glued that in to make a pocket for your gift card. The label on the outside, I only glued on the left-hand side. And I did add a dimensional here, but did not take the paper off of it so that it just lies flat when you lay it down. I don't know if you really need it or not, but that's what I did. So there you have it. The last set of cards are will be fairly familiar to you. Last month we did that sliced card in our Christmas club, and so this month we're using the same technique to make a greeting card that is 5 1/4 inches by 3 1/4 inches. So I cut off 3/4 of an inch on one of those 4 by 5 1/4 pieces. So it's 5 1/4 by 3 1/4, sliced it at an angle, slid it apart, and then bumped up both pieces with dimensionals. You can see the dimensionals, maybe better from here. The dimensionals on here. And then I used a 1/2 inch piece of Pretty Peacock, slid it down through the channel, glued it underneath flat. So it's flat, and these two pieces are raised just a bit. I took one of the cloud pieces, and I overlaid it with a white piece, stamped the "Here's to You," Again, you could use any sentiment. And then what I did in here, I don't know if you can see that, but I added 2 dimensionals on the Pretty Peacock, which is lower than the 2 outside pieces, and just stuck it on there real good. And again, I'm running low on my embellishments and ribbon, waiting for the new catalog. So I just tied a knot. I think it looks cute. The last card, I used bits and pieces of what I had from leftover from the other cards. So I just took 2 pieces of the inside of the envelope here and a little 1/4 inch, or is that 1/2 inch? Hold on just a second. Yeah, it's a half inch of the Pretty Peacock, and I just took a slice off of one of the cards. You could just use a piece of Pretty Peacock paper, or Calypso Coral, or Mango Melody, or just Jade, any of the colors that are complementary. And I just put a piece of twine around it, tied a bow, and glued them all flat. Then taking the piece of the bumblebee, I again stenciled it. I did the clouds first, and then I stenciled on the trees, and I told you how to do that before. You just use the negative piece from when you punch out the trees, added the Here's to You straight onto the bumblebee, and then added 1 dimensional right underneath there so that it would bump out. And there you have it. So let's see what you create.